Yo, welcome. So we're gonna switch things up a little bit. Instead of doing a cold open, we have so much housekeeping. We want to get that out of the way and get right into the interviews. So let me run through this real quick. We got a new show on the channel every night besides Wook Wednesday, where we're gonna do microdoses, make it a little more accessible for everybody. You know, we have fun on Wednesday nights with everybody in the interviews, but it's a little bit of a commitment with an hour. So if you want just a little fix of Wook, check out the microdoses. Also, tonight after this show, we have the premiere of Donna Rap from Dick's. They're not calling it Dick's, right?
Donna Rap
from Larimer Lounge.
That's
right.
Choice?
Taper's Choice.
More live Taper's Choice videos coming out.
I love that reaction, Cam, but nobody's
it's
surprised.
Donor Rap, guys. It's Donor Rap.
I said Donor Rap.
You guys both said Donor. It's Donor. And then it just goes out.
Speaking of Llama, we have a blog post that went live today reviewing Dave's and Tim's music. They did some solo work. It's dope. So go check that out and listen to it. Also, we got the Ghost Bracket at Weekend Wook on Twitter. We're in the second round. So it's a lot going on. Andy's backstage like, holy shit, these guys got a lot of random little shit going on.
Donor Rap.
Next week on Live, we have John Herman, writer extraordinaire. We've had him on a return guest.
Wrote the Straight Out of Compton screenplay.
Academy Award nominated
Screenwriter.
Yeah. Fucking
Let's
love
get it
John
right.
too.
You just
And
put
also,
nominated real tiny. You just put Academy Award.
Right.
he's a fun guest.
He's awesome.
Yeah, and so then also we have the super chat now. So you see a little donate button. We have our annual budget coming up on all this shit. So if you want to support the channel, like and subscribe. And then the last thing I want to do is we're partnering up with Footy Kids. So if you guys don't know them, they do the soccer jerseys, which they call football jerseys because, you know, but we have a Wook+ the Howling kit. So go over to footykit.com.
Dude, nobody take 13.
No,
I don't have to fight anybody.
we're all gonna have them. That's gonna be dope.
It's gonna be sweet. I'm so excited.
All right, I think we should start the show.
We should.
wook+live.
Welcome again. We're back. All right.
So nice having the kicker at the end. It just makes it complete. Like it gives you that breath because you're expecting it, and when it's not there, it's
you need that for a transition, and I need to breathe because, like, going through housekeeping, I was just trying to rant it off super fast, and now I got to just chill now. Right, the energy. We're here. We're hanging out. It's Wednesday night. We're just
got to work on your live reads there.
I thought it was great. What are you talking about? It's a goddamn good read. All right, so tonight we are joined by an Andy, an extraordinary Andy.
The League of Extraordinary Andys.
An exceptional Andy. We had Andy Michaels on last night, and Gay Deal's coming up. But tonight we have Andy Bernstein, author of the Pharmer's Almanac from back in the day, and more importantly, co-founder. And what is your actual title? It's like CEO or board of directors for Headcount. Executive director.
Yeah.
Awesome. Welcome, Andy. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
Fantastic. So I'm going to be fanboy a little bit when we talk about that book because it was how you knew anything at the time. I don't know if we're going to jump in right there. Maybe that's a good way to jump right in.
Go for it.
Go for it.
I mean, it was just
structure.
Pre-internet, everything. It was how you found all your info, and it really, was my go-to thing. It was the original place to do a data dive. I mean, you want to go through a little bit of how it happened. I mean, like Deadbase existed. I guess that might have been a model for what you did at that time. But how did it all come about?
Totally. It was definitely the model, but it started with my buddy Lockhart Steele, which is a real person, not a made-up name.
And, I always wondered about that.
Yeah. So Locke was a couple years younger than me in college, and he was a little bit of a fish mentor. Like he had a really good tape collection. So he was the guy that I learned a lot about fish through, and he'd been seeing them since literally they played in his high school. And at the Sugar Bush shows in 94, we were hanging out. Am I having this right? Or 95. We were hanging out after the show, like camping or whatever, and just like kind of like started brainstorming the idea for the book, like what we were into. Like we were into the stats and stuff like that, the dead base style, but we were also like really into the storytelling. Like I think that was kind of
that was the key.
idea. Yeah, it was like, let's just like share our friends' stories, because like that was the life we were living. You know, it was like the road trip stories of fish were like the were as defining as anything to like just who we are as people. We're, you know, early 20s, and so, and we had like really good laughs. Like we were just coming up with the ideas for the book. And there used to be like the back page of the book used to be all these different like stereotypes of fish fans. And that was honestly the first thing we came up with, just like laughing about the different people we saw in the parking lot and ourselves. Like we made fun of ourselves.
And to this day, we make fun of ourselves and everyone else. Except
Yeah,
that they're
and to this
Brad and
day, there's
Chad now
people-
instead of.
Yeah. There's also people who can't. Like there's that element to the fish.
Yeah,
Fish.
take themselves too seriously, take the band and the music a little too seriously, maybe.
My mom
Oh.
always said, "Fuck them if they can't take a joke."
Yeah, and the funny thing is, the band doesn't take themselves that seriously.
No, not at all. And I
Um,
think that's what attracts people to them is the
Yeah.
cavalier funness of it, you know.
Totally. And when we're like, you know, at that age, like fish was such a life altering thing, and you guys know this.
Well,
and
how old were
everybody
you
knows.
then when you started it?
Let's see, the Almanac came out in 95, so I had just turned 24 when it came out. So the Sugar Bush, that summer I was 23.
Same age as me.
Yeah,
That's funny.
the perfect age
Yeah.
for that.
And Locke was probably 20 or something, or 21. And I got my buddies from my high school and buddies involved. And like, so, you know, we started it out like, as I said, like it started with the humor. It started with just our funny stories and our funny take on the fish world, but also like really interested in helping kind of unlock the history of the band and the set lists and the patterns of set lists. And so, you know, this will be hard for anybody who wasn't this age to wrap your head around. But if you were not super internet savvy in 1995, you had no access to fish set lists. You learned of a set list from what was on the back of a tape. So Dead Bass was really mind opening. Like when you looked at Dead Bass, you started to understand the patterns of how the Grateful Dead put on a show, and what a rare song was and what was a common song. And the only other way you could get that information was going to a lot of shows or owning a lot of tapes. That was the experience Dead fans had for a generation.
Yeah, when I got Dead Bass, I would look through there. I'd be like, I want this tape. And I'd be looking through people's lists that they would mail me. Did they have that?
Right. Totally. But what we saw that Dead Bass didn't do was it didn't make you laugh, and it didn't bring you into the culture. It was literally a database. So when we were thinking about the Almanac, we were thinking about both. We were like, how do you combine these things? How do you combine the information with the personalities? And you know, a lot of credit to Lockhart. Like Locke was an extreme nerd in terms of like he came up with like the data tables and how to do all these databases, and he also had really encyclopedic knowledge of fish. Plus, he had been collecting fish articles for the last like 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
And again, this is pre-internet. You couldn't just go on Google and search fish and know everything. So he had actually we had access to a lot of information that was public, but it wasn't like it wasn't stuff that everybody knew. You had to have that copy of the article torn out of the magazine or the local newspaper. So I think one of the things that we did that was really cool was the opening parts of the book, which had like a 10 or 15 page fish history. I think it was really strong. Like it was really thorough. It was really accurate. I think it was pretty well written. And just sometimes you like, I could never be capable of putting something together like that right now in life. But like when you're young and you're like creatively charged, you're just like a machine and you're like pouring out the best stuff you're ever going to create in your life. And so, yeah, like you said, Great Wayne, I think a lot of people in that era really went from being new fans to really knowledgeable fans by sitting on the John reading the Farmer's Almanac. Like
that's how they got their cred, was by reading the Farmer's Almanac. They got their fan cred, learning all that stuff.
Exactly. And you would be an instant, if you read the book, you were an expert. If you read everything in that book, you could talk to anybody about fish. But we made it fun. It wasn't like your homework. It was like, we wanted on every page there was a surprise. Like it wasn't like chapters. It was, there were chapters, but everything had different things in it, little sidebars, little stats, little like quirky jokes. And like it's a lot of, there's been a lot more fish stuff since then with in some ways, much more effort and research and all that. But there you go.
Your copy.
But
falling apart.
Yeah. I mean, it's at least 20 years old. So it's honestly, it means a lot to me to kind of lead with that, because like, we put everything we had into that for like 5 or 6 years, and then we just went on in life. And Lockhart became very, very successful. He started Curbed and Eater, those websites.
Yeah.
So Locke went on, and Locke he was just a really well-known guy. He was also the managing editor of Gawker. So Locke did great things.
All sorts of stuff.
Yeah. There was a feature on him in the, I think in the New York Times Sunday magazine, and it led with, "You're not going to believe this. Lockhart Steele, blogger extraordinaire, wrote a book about fish." Sort of his kind of trivia about him. And then my buddies, Brian Celentano and Larry Chasnoff. Larry also famous in the Disco Biscuits world because we have a song named after us. And a guy named Adam Brinton also. We just started this thing, and like it was so long ago. I mean, it's over 20 years ago, but that it still like has impact, and still like I know that a lot of fish fans really became bigger fans, like and just became even bigger appreciators of the entire experience, because knowledge helps you appreciate things.
Yeah.
And we used to like hear that all the time. So it always means a lot to me when people remember it. And
was that your first big project that like you had organized and put together like that and distributed, or had you done this in other realms outside of fish, or was it kind of organically grown and for the first time in this community with that publication?
Yeah, I had never done anything like that. I did a lot of writing in college. But yeah, the Farmer's Almanac was a purely entrepreneurial thing. And I love starting things from the ground up. And sometimes the best way to do it is know nothing.
Yeah.
And the way that we got the Almanac going, I mean, we printed it ourselves with a printer. The very first Almanac is not impressive. It has a lot of spelling errors.
I heard it was stapled together.
It was literally stapled together. The way we started distributing it was on the fall tour. We would walk around between sets and say, "Hey, what's the hippie store in your town? What's the like head shop in your town?" And people would look at us and be like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, what's the hippie store in your town?" And they're like, "Grateful Threads in Indianapolis." And we'd write down Grateful Threads in Indianapolis. And after doing this for about 10 shows, we had a list. I mean, we had a list of like 300 store names. Some of them were bunk. Some of them were like stores that sold pipes. But you start to see the same names come up, and like, Terrapin Station, there were 3 of them, and all these stores and whatnot. So then what we did is, and this was a little shady, but it all worked out. Call the store and say, "Hey, do you have the Farmer's Almanac, that new book?" That's brilliant. Like, "No, what's that?" I'm like, "Oh, you got to get that book." And a couple times we'd call, and someone would say, "Yeah, you're the third person who called and asked me. I don't know where to get it, but I'm going to find out."
It's like you and Locke and like your buddies.
It was because we had buzz, because we had sold them on the first 3 shows, that the Halloween, and we didn't sell in the parking lot, but we would just go and sell them in rest stops and stuff, which was like printing money. Like it's full of Fish fans. You'd have time to talk to people and show them the book. People would buy it. It was $10. So it had really good buzz, actually. Again, like pre-internet, like just people saying, "Oh, you got to see this book," and so then we would call up the stores like a week later and be like, "Hey, we're with the Farmer's Almanac." They're like, "Oh my God, I'm so glad you called. I'll take a dozen." And we sold right through the first print run. The first print run was 1,000. We sold those out clean. And then we like did a reprint, fixed the spelling errors. I think reprint was like 6,000 and sold those out clean. And like eventually I think the runs were like 20,000 because we did 6 total.
I bought my copy at the mall at the bookstore, so you made it into the middle America.
You remember bookstores? That was a thing once.
Yeah,
remember bookstores?
And that was our big break. Like we were in bookstores, we were in Borders Books, and then we were in Barnes and Noble, and then we got a publishing deal. The Volume 5 came out it was like our major label deal, Putnam Berkeley Publishing, and that was fine. I mean, they didn't sell nearly as many as we'd hoped. Funky Witch is asking what's a mall. Yeah. The sad thing is that kids are really asking these questions these days. But yeah, it was very and it was all, I mean, it was super grassroots. Like when the almanacs would get printed, they would come to our house, and there's a photo we have where we filled an entire bedroom. There was nothing else in the bedroom. We filled it with almanacs up to the ceiling, and then we would mail them to all the stores. So they wouldn't stay there that long, but it was very in-house operation. It was like everything we did, we just sort of figured out how to do ourselves.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I guess it's safe to say, or maybe is it safe to say, that the experience of doing the Farmer's Almanac led to what you did with headcount and that same, because it sounds to me with from an outsider's that that whole entrepreneurial learning how to build things and work things up from the grassroots and start from nothing and build it started with the Almanac and then was the model that you might have used with headcount.
Totally, 100%, yeah, and all the hard learned lessons with headcount with the Almanac we were able to take into headcount. Yeah, I mean, exactly. And it was also where my co-founder for headcount was Mark Brownstein of the Disco Biscuits, and at the time the biscuits were doing pretty well at the time, but it had in the late 90s. The biscuits were promoting themselves as grassroots as you could get. Like Mark would stand in front of Wetlands and hand out flyers about the Disco Biscuits are playing in 2 weeks.
You used to see them at the 8x10. There would be 30 of us there, maybe.
Right. And I'm sure you found the band was super accessible. Brownstein was probably walking around, probably knew everybody in the crowd. So those two things, like how the biscuits had been built up and how headcount how the Farmer's Almanac was created, that completely informed headcount. When we started, it was all about grassroots, community connection, the really strong community connections in the jam band scene, and how do you work within that to get people voting. And in 2000, the election before, we started in 2004, 2000 election had the lowest turnout ever, so low, painfully low, and then got decided by 565 votes in Florida. So there was this,
and the hanging chads and all the other drama that went around it.
Exactly. So there was this real feeling of and Hunter S. Thompson said in I think in a Relics interview, he said, if every deadhead in Florida had voted, the world would be a different place. And then you have the Bush presidency, which people forget was as polarizing as the Trump presidency. You had the war in Iraq, you had all these things going on, and this feeling of, well, shit, if we can just get the people who go to the same concerts we go to voting, that could make the difference. There were so many close elections back then on the congressional level. All the time there'd be an election that was decided by 1,000 votes or so. Gerrymandering has killed that, but at the time there was this feeling of, holy shit, if we just get all our friends to vote, we can change the world.
Yeah.
And which is a good way to look at it for sure. And so that was where kind of Headcount came from, is taking this, I think, pretty deep understanding of the jam band scene and how it works, and saying, all right, well, let's apply this to something other than music. Let's apply this to world change and voter mobilization. And then over 18 years, I mean, the funny thing now is there's so many people involved in Headcount who have no connection whatsoever to the jam band scene. They're coming to us through Harry Styles or Ariana Grande or Billie Eilish.
Comedians and shit too, right? Like I think I saw like Seth Meyers or somebody. Like, you're doing like you're way outside of just the jam band or music realm now. You're all over the place.
Totally. And it's funny because there's some people, they really have no connection to the jam scene at all, and they're like, that's weird. What, huh? But the secret sauce is still the jam band scene. Because, how does Seth Meyers happen? Well, I'm pretty sure there's a deadhead. There's definitely somebody on his staff who's like awesome to us. And I can't remember if specifically he's a Dead fan or Fish fan, but I'm just going to guess that he is, because that's usually how it works.
Yeah.
And like so many, the music business there are so many heads in the music business, and so you can, so we work with Panic at the Disco, which is a really good band for us to work with. Their fans are super engaged, young. The manager's a huge deadhead,
right.
People don't even know that he's a deadhead, but
that's a great lesson, because I feel like in the workplace, a lot of people kind of hide or like pull back from their wookery or their jam band fandom. Right.
They're
like,
only a wook on the weekend.
Right. Like that's where that whole idea came from, because like you go to work and like you almost don't want to say like, oh yeah, I went to see Fish for the whole week or whatever. But in reality, you probably could do a lot more networking and growth and make a lot more connections to just and I don't know, maybe I'm projecting, but like, I think that's a great reason why you shouldn't, hold any of that back and just be who you are.
Totally. I mean, if you can't talk about Fish at work, you probably need a new job.
Although I got to say, one of my staff, like a girl that works under me this past summer, is like, oh, I'm going to my first Fish show. And I could tell she was trying to be like, hey, let's meet up at the show. And I was like, no, you don't want to hang out with your staff while you're at a Fish show.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. And I think like also what's changed is we're all just so much older, so when you're in your 20s and you're just starting out, the Fish fans and the, kids doing drugs and like, just don't have a career to fall back on. You got to be really, but at this point, the Fish fans are running, and Dead fans are running parts of America. And so, for it to be like something you can't talk about, it's like.
Yeah, you can definitely talk about it now.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, actually, because I feel like nonpartisanship is a really big part of your messaging, or at least it's something that I've heard come up several times. Do you feel like it's evenly split amongst the people you're registering, or do you even know, like, do you have data on how many register from each party, or is it just completely not part of the equation? You just want mass people coming out to vote?
So I can tell you that data, while available, I haven't really looked at in years. It's definitely not. There's a lot of data we're paying attention to, and that's not one of them.
Right.
But it is heavily Democratic. And one reason it's heavily Democratic is because we're heavily registering young people, and there's a big political split by age in America. So if you're reaching young people, you're going to be reaching a lot more Democratic voters. And that, to me, like, I don't have any problem with that. But I do really try to be really vigilant about being nonpartisan. And it's sometimes a losing battle. Certainly most of the artists that we work with are very left-leaning. And certainly most of the people involved in the organization mirror that. But my feeling is like we're not on one side or the other. We're on the side of democracy. And in a really polarized country, which just sucks. I mean, it just sucks that we live in two Americas.
Yeah, it really does.
And, in a really polarized country, we're trying to we're on a narrow island of trying to say, hey, all sides are valid. And there's a lot of people who don't believe that all sides are valid. They believe their side is valid and the other side is evil.
They're all on
And,
Facebook.
Well,
you know,
and that's in itself is a tough topic because I feel like both sides have gone even more extreme. So maybe I would argue both sides aren't valid, but again, I guess that's my opinion. I don't know. It just seems like you see what other sides have become versus where they started, and we're kind of on that border of, is both sides valid? Like I hate when people say like both sides of the aisle or whatever, because I'm like, well, no, I feel like we're on there's two different levels there.
yeah, I agree with that. And I think there's also one of the phrases that's used is there's a false dichotomy, meaning you can't look at both sides as equal in their craziness. And I would say the false dichotomy is false. Both sides are freaking nuts. The people on the fringes are not capable of running things. There's no moral consistency. There's no there's no pragmatism on both sides.
It seems like a lot of this stems from the rise of social media too. You know, Facebook 2008 on. I mean, it's become, people can become niche. They can find their little group and they're in their own little echo chamber.
It is amazing how, and you know, I'll admit, like my Facebook feed is entirely left leaning in terms of what people post. There's one guy I went to junior high with who sheepishly post a few, like, not even Trump things, but just conservative things. And I look at it like, and there's like two or three. And I actually really appreciate those people. One, because I'm hearing stuff that I don't hear anywhere else. And I also, it takes some balls, like, because there's people who are, I'm defriending you, I'm doing all this, whatever. And I just think it's so important to like hear both sides of any argument. You don't have to agree with both sides, but at least
hear it.
there's always
get all the information you can so you can process it and come to
an informed judgment. And if you're only hearing one side, I mean, I'm doing a panel tomorrow, and they've sent me the questions, and the questions are about voter suppression. And voter suppression or things like it are very real in certain regards, but the exaggeration about it is extreme. And it's like when Biden says this is Jim Crow on steroids, there is no rational person can look at the laws that are on the books now. I mean, the laws that prompted that are like, you know, what in Texas was for a while they were doing 24-hour voting during COVID, and they banned that and said that every county has to have the same voting hours. Saying every county has to have the same voting hours is not Jim Crow. It's just not. You cannot make that argument.
It diminishes Jim Crow, like
it really
and the impact and what that is meant in history.
Yeah.
Not to say that what's going on is good, but when you go to that extreme, it kind of distorts or diminishes the history and the important lessons from it.
Exactly. And what I would say to anybody is, don't believe anything don't believe a media narrative, because the media narrative is created to basically get you to look at advertising. You know, like it's going to try to simplify things and try to get you to feel something and come back for more. And don't believe anything that's where someone's asking you for money. I mean, if you're getting an email about, oh my God, this is a terrible thing that's happening, give us $5. Well, don't believe it. Like,
I got so many text messages today from grifting parties, and actually that's an example of both sides of candidates. And I live in Pennsylvania, so if it was like Fetterman or Oz, I would get it. But I'm getting like Ron DeSantis and like, you know, Herschel Walker and all this like shit. They're just like send me $5 text messages. It's insane how, dude, 5-10 of them a day I'm getting.
And what's happening is that most of that stuff is outsourced by a campaign to a company that is directly making lots of money by playing the game of data. It's like there's a 0.0001% chance you're going to get that, make that $5, but the cost of the text is less than that. And so they're going to hit tons of people who do not care and are not going to make that donation to just have the positive ROI. And then there's going to be a political message in there that's meant to get you going.
Start
and
you
on
up
the left,
can you believe what so-and-so did? Can you believe what happened?
Well, it's always
today in
fear
Congress?
mongering because it's like, oh, if the Dems get to office, like they're gonna take your guns or whatever, like in a text message. But I could change that for $5, you know.
Right. And so, to your question about the nonpartisanship. So for me, I just really believe in that part of headcount. And I recognize there are things that are really hard. Like we will message around voting rights. And while I say you should question what you hear when someone says the sky is falling with voting rights, there's also really messed up stuff. I mean, just the fact that people wait on lines for hours and that in America, Black Americans wait online on average much longer than white Americans. Well, that's really messed up.
Is that voter suppression, though? Is that?
Yeah, it's fucking voter suppression. It's 100% voter suppression.
Yeah. I mean, how many people can wait online for 3 hours,
Can we make Election Day a national holiday and get rid of Columbus Day?
Yeah.
And do you do any lobbying? Sorry. Does headcount get into the political side of it, or is it just registering?
No, we definitely do. So we have kind of strict guidelines on what we'll do and what we won't. But the areas where we're most active is on voting rights. And we did a campaign called Save the Vote. But it was a very nonpartisan campaign. And that's what I, as a leader, insisted on. I said, we've got to cut through the partisan rhetoric and talk about this in a way that is unifying. And so we came up with a value statement. It was elections should be fair, accessible, and trustworthy. Something that everyone agrees with. Right. And then we get people to send an email or a text or a call to their state legislator saying, I believe this, elections should be fair, accessible, and trustworthy. What are you doing to protect this? And especially with state legislators, they'll respond to an email. So people actually get into a conversation with their state legislators about voting rights. And that's a really, really healthy thing. And when you shine lights on things, the extremes, that's when they get less extreme. Hey, Katie, former volunteer, TL Midwest, started in Chicago, then St. Louis and DC. Oh,
that's awesome.
Good to see you, Katie. I'm trying to remember your last name. I used to know the names of everyone.
Do you still hit the lots and the shows and run anything, or is it all more administrative office level? Like, I know like you have an incredible volunteer force, and obviously it's not like you at every show, but like, do you still try to ever get down to any of the shows, or what's your involvement like?
Anything. I'll mess it all up. No, I'm not great in the field. I really should do it more. I always say that because I actually learn a lot when I'm out
undercover boss.
I do that. I'll go up to a table and just see a random volunteer and just let them do the spiel on me. And I'm not testing them. I'm testing our training. Like whatever they're doing is a reflection of how we've set them up and how we've trained. So then sometimes somebody will point me out, and then the person's like all nervous. I'm like, no, I'm not testing you. Don't worry. You're doing great. Anything you're not doing great is our fault, not yours. But we have, and I'm glad that Katie kind of chimed in there. We just have really amazing people who worked so hard for so long. Like the organization was built with just, real sweat equity and many like headcount team leaders. Like if you know a headcount team leader, buy them a drink because it's hard work to go out and be at a show and organize and confirm the volunteers, some of whom don't show up, and come really early and be sober, which we require. You can't be drinking while you're running a voter registration drive. So you're at a show, you're not partying.
I'm out. I was going to volunteer.
I never get it.
Yeah, I'm out.
So our people are just great, and I wouldn't be nearly as good at their job as they are. And then we send people on the road. We've had people embedded on Dead & Company tour the entire time.
Yeah, you guys do that whole participation row, right?
Yeah. And that's something
awesome.
I'm really proud of. I love that. I mean, that was another just creative concoction. Peter Shapiro, who's now our board chair, and I'm sure is a name that everybody knows, he started the Lock-In Festival, and he's like, he and a guy named John Dindis just were like, do something cool, do something good. We want our festival to be a place of good. What can you come up with? And we came up with Participation Row, and then 2 years later, we brought it to Fare Thee Well. And it was very, very successful, really well received at Fare Thee Well. Like so many things about what we did just really clicked at Fare Thee Well, including fundraising, where we raised money for all the different dead charities. There were 17 charities there that all had some affiliation with a band member. Exactly. Save and Rainforest Action Network are the old school ones. And then like Bill Kreutzmann was like, can you invite Normal? Can you invite Surf Rider? We're like, sure. And we auctioned a guitar for $500,000 at Fairly Well. And
I read that stat. Out of your total raisings, that guitar was a big chunk of it. I mean, yeah, $500,000. That's insane.
It literally was insane because the two people bidding were not sober. I mean, like they could have easily disputed it, you know. But you know, we learned
that was in Chicago that they bid that. Was it like a live event?
Was it Jim Irsay you got it?
Well, it wasn't. You know, like he's an actual Jim Irsay, of course, is the owner of the Colts and a guitar collector.
Yeah, huge guitar collector.
Huge, yeah.
That we had bidding were not. They were not collectors. They were wasted.
Babe, we got to mortgage the house.
Can you imagine calling your partner like, "Oh, hi, honey. Yeah, I'm at Fairly Well.
You got the guitar?
$500,000 guitar."
It totally happened because the guy who won was not. He was not the true baller that the guy was bidding against. The guy was bidding against was a known person, a very successful businessman. He won't miss the money at all. The guy who won, a successful businessman, but we looked him up. Like he had a nice house. He didn't have an estate. And
was the guitar worth more than the house?
It is now.
It is now.
I mean, it wasn't, but like it was. I mean, this guy was wealthy, but not. He was a successful small business owner. The other guy owned a company that went public. Like there was a real difference.
Yeah,
but it was.
So you get fucked up, you have a pissing contest, and next thing you know, you buy the match.
Totally. I mean,
it went to charity though, so God bless. I mean, it went to charity, so it's a great thing.
Yeah, it really was, and it was game changing for us. I mean, I'm very grateful to everybody in the Dead Camp and Bob Weir, Bob Weir has been a board member of Headcount from day one, and you know, this is what I kind of try to tell our younger staff and whatnot. It's like there's a beautiful, like, kind of symbiotic relationship between Headcount and the jam scene that allows us to go into like a Harry Styles or Billie Eilish world. We've learned so much, we've tested so much, we continue to generate a lot of the funding from the Dead world, and then at a Harry Styles show, we're doing really effective work. I mean, we're up on the video boards at Harry Styles. We're engaging with hundreds of people. And then we did an online thing with Harry Styles where we registered over 50,000 people.
Wow.
With one little contest with Harry Styles.
Wow.
And none of this happens without building it up through the jam scene. But now we can, and we did one with Fish that was actually quite successful. We gave away like a Pollock print and a year's supply of fish food and 2 tickets, and we had many thousand people enter. I think 18,000 people entered that one.
That was with Ben and Jerry's too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Jay Curley, I remember that. Yeah,
Jay Curley's a good man.
So you in 2020, and I guess this year, you partnered with Global Citizen, which is, I guess, another avenue to really get your message out there.
Yeah, and for those who don't know Global Citizen, they're a really interesting beast in the best way. So what they're best known for is they put on a big concert in Central Park. This year, the headliner was Metallica. Billie Eilish has headlined it. Lizzo, like the biggest names. And it's all free tickets. You get tickets by taking actions. And Global Citizen is like a really everything they do is like top notch. And their CEO, Hugh Evans, is this really brilliant, big thinking guy who's also like an absurdly good speaker, like the kind of person who just can own a room and own a room with like no matter who's in it. But what Global Citizen does that I think people don't understand, and I'm on the board of Global Citizen now, the concert is just sort of a flagship event. But what they're really doing is they're a catalyst to get big corporations and governments to try to end extreme poverty around the world with massive investments, multi-billion-dollar investments. So what Global Citizen is not doing is they're like, hey, we're out here raising money and we're going to give it to the poor. What they're doing is they're getting these very influential world leaders to change policy to make these multi-billion-dollar investments into ending poverty, which is such a cool, like mind-blowing thing. And they do it really effectively. I think a lot of people don't really know that that's what they do. And that's like a struggle for them or something to overcome. But for headcount, this guy Hugh came to us really during the pandemic with just some really big thinking about the idea of really creating a lot of synergies between the organizations and really kind of headcount becoming a sort of the civic engagement arm of Global Citizen. And it's really cool because we have this sort of partner that, you know, we're all about like music and culture driving change. And we're all about working in these spaces where we're trying to get the musicians to be advocates. And headcount, we've had a lot of success with the Dead and Fish and Dave Matthews and Jack Johnson. We're Global Citizen, they are playing on the highest level, you know, and they're getting these mega artists to come perform for free to change the world. And so it's probably not a coincidence that, and we were already working with Ariana Grande and others, Billie Eilish, but we've just sort of moved up in terms of our ability to work at these really, really influential places. So I'm very grateful to Global Citizen. I think they're culturally really different. I mean, they're certainly not a jam band organization at all.
Right.
And someday I'm sure you'll see. I know had there not been for the pandemic, I think Dead and Company was going to play Global Citizen. But too late now.
Well, apparently.
Yeah.
Well, there's always next summer.
Well, Global Citizen is in September, and the Dead and Company shows will be the last.
In July,
month.
right.
But I do hope. I mean, we connected Bobby and Hugh, and they actually really hit it off. And Bobby ended up doing like a little talk for all their like senior staff and partners and whatnot. So I like that stuff. I'm a very not corporate person, but
But it's important to get that kind of fundamental change across the board and like the true social justice. You know, it's one thing to be like, I'm not corporate, but you can't ignore it or deny it, right? Like that's how the world works, is through these large corporations and the government involvement. So it's kind of important that you have that Global Citizen working that way.
Totally. And there's, you know, like in the end, like it or not, you know, the Johnson & Johnsons and the Googles and the Ciscos and the really big companies, the choices they make impact everybody, and how they spend money impacts everybody. And when you can get a big company like that to make a massive donation of vaccines to the developing world, that's like really good thing to do, you know?
Yeah.
So you can't just shit on corporate America and say, well, fuck those guys, because they need organizations like Global Citizen and Headcount to help them leave a better imprint in the world. And the Headcount work that we do with brands, I love it. Like we're going to Georgia next week, and we're handing out Liquid Death water. And Liquid Death is this cool new brand. They're very environmentally conscious.
Oh, if you've gone to any fish shows,
they're polarizing.
No, but you know, because all the, what is that? The guy that owns all the venues that Fish plays.
Shapiro does it.
Yeah, Shapiro,
the Live Nation venue.
The Live Nation venue says Liquid Death. I like it though. I get it. I mean, I don't like it in the show, but I get it.
The cans are great. It looks like you're having an alcoholic.
It looks like you're having a beer, and if you're trying to stay
nobody comes up and says,
whatever,
"Why aren't you drinking?"
Yeah, nobody does that at a fish show. But
what's polarizing about them though?
People were just the fact that it's in a can, and they were saying that it's aluminum tasting,
like the metal taste gets into the water, I think. And
yeah, that's fair. That's I mean, I don't know if that's true or not, but I can see how that would be a
I think fish fans can be a little pretentious, and we're a fish-centric show, so I'm probably going to regret saying this, but I feel like if you were at like a metal or a rock concert and you had the Liquid Death and shit, it would totally jive and be cool. I feel like there's some fish fans that are a little pretentious, like, oh, why don't you have your Nalgene and refill that?
It was all over at Alice.
You know, it
was all over at Alice in Chains. They were selling it because that was at Nissan.
I like it though; it's cool.
Getting to know the Liquid Death folks a little bit, their whole ethos is kind of pointing out ridiculousness and all their marketing is like anti-marketing. Water should be free. Yeah, like air. I mean, I agree that water should be free, but the can should cost money. Yeah. But
that's the answer.
So we're going to Georgia, where there's a law where you can't give anybody water or anything else within 150 feet of a polling station.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just going to give out water kind of everywhere else and just sort of go guerrilla style all over the state to places where people are, football games, concerts, everything, and just like be in the parking lots and hand out water with little voter information cards. And that's the kind of thing, like that's when we're working with a brand. Like I love that stuff. Like what we do with Ben and Jerry's, we're giving away a year of Ben and Jerry's with a Pollock print and fish tickets, or we do really cool stuff with like American Eagle. And that's, you know, I'm not the target audience for American Eagle. It's teenagers.
No.
Teenagers. But that's who we want to reach is headcount. That's who we want to get voting. So to work with a brand like that is just great. So I like that part. Like I'm not a very, I wouldn't last a minute in corporate America, but I like just sort of ducking our heads in and finding cool companies to work with and partner with, like a Ben and Jerry's, Patagonia. We worked with a lot over the years. And that's just fun. Like
I think there's ethical capitalism. Like I know, like there's like a hot phrase to say on social media is like down with consumerism and capitalism and corporate America, but there are a lot of companies and brands that operate under the premise of ethical capitalism. And in reality, if you think about the philosophy of it, that's how mobilization and social movement works in the modern era. Is they're not saying that the pressure isn't for votes as much as it is for losing money, right? Like if you can get a large group of people to feel a certain way and push in a certain direction, the brands are the first ones to jump behind. And even if the motivation behind it is greed or profit,
not greed,
but profit, which is not necessarily inherently bad. But regardless, there's a mechanism that creates change and movement. So I think, I know that like, we're kind of getting to some heavy shit, but it's not, I don't think it's fair to just say like flat out, like, oh, fuck capitalism or consumerism or any of that shit. Cause that is,
well, I like eating. So you can't say fuck capitalism. I have to go to the grocery store. You know?
Yeah, right. And, well, just in our scene, in the fish scene, you know, like the parking lot is the most capitalist, pure capitalism there is. And we love it. And that's what I like. For me, what I love is just being creative and making things. And like Peter Shapiro, who's a brother, friend, mentor, board chair, all of it. Like that's what drives Pete. I mean, I know Pete really well. And Pete never talks about how much profit something is making. Like it's just, I think it drives his partners crazy, but that is just not how Pete's brain works. Pete is all about making things and making experiences and making memories and all that. And when you do that well, you make money too, and then you can do it even more. And I think like
we got work to do, Tim.
There's nothing wrong with capitalism, in my mind. I'm sure some people would want to throw a tomato at me for saying that. But it's really who's involved and who are the winners and losers. And like there are plenty of really good people trying to do good things with the platforms they have. And so for headcount, like I love that part of things. And whether it's what we're doing at Fare Thee Well with an auction where it's basically Robin Hood. We're taking two very rich guys who are going at it, and then we're literally writing checks to 17 organizations for $30,000 each. That shit's fun, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
And I just love that we kind of just dreamed that whole thing up. And we work with a guitar brand, D'Angelico, who ended up doing a signature model for Bob Weir. And like that partnership, I mean, a huge shout out to them. And if anybody is a guitar player, I mean, their instruments are really beautiful. They're really physically beautiful. And those guys, what they have done quietly and to help us do our job, like this guitar brand that has this like sick showroom in Manhattan ended up having this huge impact on us and our scene and everything. So I'm really grateful to all those folks. And like, it's all like the tapestry of the community. Like you've got from the person selling grilled cheese in the parking lot to the person who starts a company and then can come in and like bid on
sell liquid death in the venue. Right?
Yeah. Like And there's definitely heads involved with Liquid Death for sure.
Yeah.
So it's like what a crazy thing that here we are, 25. I don't know when you guys started seeing Fish. I'm going to guess the 90s.
89.
Well,
Right.
yeah, Kev's an old head. I'm the youngest, so I'm actually a 3.0 fan. Right when it started,
T's right with you in 93.
And T's right in the
93.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
89. Where did you see them?
8x10 in Baltimore.
Nice.
In December of 89. I barely made it.
Wow.
Barely got in. I went and saw him. Funny story. I've told this. They're going to shoot me. But
go ahead.
A buddy of mine calls me up. He's like, there's an Allman Brothers cover band playing tonight at the 8x10. You want to go see them with me? I'm like, sure. We go down there and they're doing I Didn't Know. We showed up and it was the first song. And he's like, I don't know, man. He was like, is it worth $7? And I was like, fuck it, we're here. Let's go in. He left after 3 songs and went to the bar next door, Lushes, to drink. And I stayed and watched the show. I've been going ever since. He never went back.
Oh man, I haven't seen Fish in the 80s. I mean, you're in rare company there. I mean, if there was a raise your hand at any Fish show who saw them in the 80s, it's going to be a smattering of people.
And then they played the Bayou. I saw a bunch of shows at the Bayou. And then they made the jump to theaters, and it was like Lisner Auditorium, that kind of thing.
I went to school in Providence, and I was a freshman in 89, and they were playing the living room all the time, and I just didn't pick up on it. I heard about it. There were kids that I went to school with, like 2 who were going.
Check 'em out.
And I didn't see them until 92. I missed that whole thing.
The
and
drummer
it was
wears a dress.
freaking in front of me. Right in front of me. They were playing Providence all the time. Big life regret there.
Oh man.
That's crazy.
So what were you into then?
Well, I was into classic rock. I was into The Who I saw last week. I was into all that.
They
Floyd.
did a symphonic thing, right?
Yeah. I went and saw The Who symphonic and then Bob Weir symphonic.
How were they?
They were all great. And The Who, the violinist in The Who is Katie Jacoby, who's Scott Metzger's wife and J-Rad. And I was very honored to go as the guest. Yeah. And went to Toronto because I was like, I'm going to be the guest of someone performing with The Who. That's awesome. Yes, I'm going. It was great. But then seeing Bobby a week later, what Bobby did with the orchestra was really different because The Who really were being backed up by an orchestra. And whereas what Bobby did was the orchestra was really at the forefront, and there was a complete new arrangements of Grateful Dead songs played by an orchestra with a lot of detail, a lot of meandering kind of things, all scripted, but very, very creative. That was really cool. I mean, and Bobby said he's going to do that for the rest of his life.
Right.
Literally.
Well, yeah, I was talking to Matt before the Saturday show, and I was plugging him. I was like, so what songs did they learn? What songs are we going to hear tonight? I was like, I know you guys did Terrapin. I know you paid to have Terrapin scored. And he was like, we tried to get the original scores. We called Greg Olson, the guy who produced the album Terrapin Station. They couldn't find him.
Interesting.
So it just didn't happen.
It was, it was really, really cool. So yeah. And I was into the Dead. I went on Dead tour sort of in 1991.
It's right there. 2
Yeah.
years later. Yeah.
And it just took me a little while to pick up on the Fish thing. I first heard Fish in the summer of 92. And I went to the Horde that summer. And then by 93, I was hooked. Mm-hmm. But I just wish I had stumbled in like you had, because this real started to see Fish in 93. I saw them in theaters. I saw smaller shows, but all the years before that, that's all it was.
There were 40 people there. I set my beer on the stage, went and hit the bathroom, went and picked my beer back up off the stage.
Yeah.
We got to get the video of back in my day or old timey. Just every time Kev goes into
have it get wavy and
VHS quality, real staticky.
I do it because I'm jealous. Honestly, I'm jealous as fuck. It sounds incredible.
It was. I went to Europe in '97, and that was pretty small rooms, but still 1,000.
Right. But the Milkway. Did you get to the Milkway? Which shows did you hit?
Now I did a different stretch of it, but that was really. I mean, and the band was very accessible. I mean, they were hanging out and everything. And
you definitely got some good ghosts. I know you're not on Twitter, so you're probably not aware, but I run this bracket where we just every once in a while do a bracket that has some different theme. And right now I'm doing one on the best ghosts of all time. And out of the top 32, like 9 of them or 8 of them are from that like single
97
month.
and 98, right?
Yeah. But like, well, more than half are from 97, 98. But
no, I mean the
Europe
tours.
97.
Right.
Yeah. Incredible ghosts out there.
Well, the music changed. I mean, that was what I was at was the show that became Slip Stitch and Pass, which was Hamburg.
Oh,
and
I was going down the hall
for that show, and in a state of mind, really appreciating it. And it was like we were like, this show is different, and it really was. Like it was during Wolfman's that they just sort of, kind of. It used to be sort of there were jam songs and there were songs that they would improvise, but they were still pretty straight. And in that Wolfman's, they just went off.
They
were
through
the same band again.
Yeah.
And then the Funk 97 came out of that, where Ghost was like, I mean, Ghost was the song in 97 because
one of the weirdest shows I ever saw was walking into Virginia Beach in 97 after the tour, because we hadn't gotten tapes yet. Nobody had mailed over tapes yet. And they opened up with Ghost and 3 other new songs. But we were like, what is this?
Ghost.
Yeah, that was that the Terrapin show?
That was 98. That was the next year.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, and you know, it's just crazy to think like that these shows they're ancient. I mean, when I was seeing the Dead felt like an old band that had been around forever. Well,
I'm older than Garcia was when I first started seeing him, which is boggles my mind.
Well, we could do that all day, but like, you know, I'm glad there are 3.0 fans, and I'm glad there are young fans. Like, you walk around a Fish show, it's a pretty old. I mean, I'd say the average age is certainly in the 40s.
But, 100%.
Yeah, but there's still kids, and like I just, you know, I'm just glad. I love seeing like young bands come up. I love seeing like there's nothing like seeing a small, young, hungry jam band. I mean, it's great, like Goose and all that.
I was just gonna ask you if you guys have gotten connected with Goose at all.
Yeah, Goose has been great, and their manager is really terrific, and like they have a great team. The Goose guys have been awesome.
They blew up really fast. We did an interview with them like 4 years ago and had like great access, and like they were kind of small and everything. No, like 3 years ago. And then all of a sudden, like overnight, they're just fucking like selling out all these massive theaters, and
they get high marks venues for what they did in the quarantine.
They dominated COVID. They
worked during it.
Yeah,
and they were blowing up right before COVID too. They were really strong.
They just rode that momentum and like turned it into something. It was great.
What's great about Goose, one is that they're good guys. You know, like nobody's like, oh, those fuckers or anything. But
right. Not yet.
It just points to that our scene is going to outlast all of us, and you know, the Dead's music is going to outlast Dead and Company, and Bobby and Phil and Mickey and Bob and Billy, and the jam scene finally has a kind of like a future. Like, you know, like Fish won't be with us forever. I think they'll be with us for a long time, but
I give them 5 years.
They're gonna do 10 at least.
No way. I don't see them touring for another 10 years.
What are you talking about?
Dude, Trey can't stop. Trey can't stop.
Yeah, Trey can't stop, but I don't know if the rest of the band wants to do that with
just
another
for
decade.
Once in a while.
They're the healthiest
for
fucking
easy shows, and exactly.
They got their heads on straight, man.
How else is Fishman gonna meet girls?
Right, Fishman's single now. The
He's
kids
have to
are
get
all
touch pants
older.
back together.
No, dude. Fish got 10. They're gonna get up to the 50 at least. Next year's 40. They're definitely getting to 50. Come on, party it.
Okay,
I'm putting.
You want to put money on it?
Thank you.
Whiteboard it. We'll see what happens.
All right,
we'll
over under. I'm
show in
taking
10
the
years.
over. Yeah,
Right.
if wook+ is still around, then Fish is certainly fucking still around.
One can't live without the
All
other.
right,
So-
I got it. Wait. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. We can go a little over. I don't care.
Can we go on a few
Yeah, we
minutes
go
over?
over.
I just
okay,
wanted
Andy?
to finish with your goals, like, did you have goals? Have you met?
Wait,
what
why
you
do you
wanted
think
to
that's
do?
finishing? I don't get to ask my final question.
Yes, you do.
All right, you go. You be penultimate. I'll be ultimate. With a terrible question that's not appropriate to end an interview.
Well, I
No,
just
you know what?
wanted
I'll
to
go
know.
penultimate, and then you be ultimate. I feel more confident in your question.
Okay.
I was doing research leading into this, and I saw an interview with you and Brownie. It was like the local news. I'm from Philly, so it's like it was 2016 October, right? So this was pre-Trump and everything. And there was this almost like, and maybe I'm projecting, but there's almost this like naive energy to it, where it's like, oh, we gotta get people out, but like maybe it's, I don't know. It just felt like such an entirely different time. Do you feel a significant change or evolution of headcount and democracy in general since that point, or do you think you've been on a straight trajectory? Because seeing people talk about elections in 2016 before everything that just happened, and seeing people talk about elections now, to me feels like you're reading like entirely different books. And so
100%.
I'm curious from your perspective how you feel things have changed in that time.
Things changed dramatically. I mean, dramatically. And it was really like, it was almost in some ways like an upside down arc, because during the Bush presidency that headcount was born out of, like people were pretty darn engaged, and voting, especially after 2000, where I mentioned that it was very low turnout. Coming to 2004, like an artist would go on stage and say, "Hey, everybody going to vote," and the crowd would go nuts. Like it was a pretty engaged time, and we were born in that moment. Then Obama gets elected in 2008, and there's this kind of feeling, especially among Democrats, is like, why isn't Obama solving everything in the world? Like, why isn't the world perfect now?
Right.
And voting became like almost like a dirty word, and it sucked. And 2008 is when headcount like started being a more like 2004, we were super grassroots. I mean, we had no money, we had nothing. We were all volunteers. 2008, we hired our first employees. I had no intention of becoming an employee. I was the board chair with Bernstein. And then, like, one of the people we hired was like, "You really got to come run this for it to work." And so I did. It was a little more dramatic than that. She actually said I was ignoring it. I was like, no, I have another job. You got this. And she goes to me, she goes, "Listen to me. This is a choice between success and failure." And I'll always be grateful to her for JC Anderson saying that, because I was like, okay, you've used the words that got my attention. So I go and I start running it in 2008 as a job. And holy shit, the next 8 years were really hard. Like we had very little in the way of resources. Like we ran the whole organization and a staff of a few people on a few $100,000 a year that we had to like find. Like it was really hard to find because people just didn't give a shit. And Fairly Well, I think, was a kind of turning point where we started figuring out new ways to raise money and things like that, and broadening our mission.
2015, right?
2015,
for perspective, yeah.
So 2016 comes, but we still our budget. Let's not talk about budget because that's not fun. But like we were still very grassroots leading into 2016, and still doing our thing. We did a show on the night of the election at Brooklyn Bowl that I'm still really proud of artistically. It was a live jam to the election returns coming in. It was everyone orchestra, and we had a lot of great guest musicians. And
it's like the most depressing end of a set ever, though.
I don't know. I know we don't have a lot of time, but like,
that's all right.
It was. You can find it on YouTube. I think it's called Soundtrack to History. Headcount Soundtrack to History, and it is like a 4-hour clip on YouTube that is the straight live stream. And nice. The election returns are in the background. And what the musicians did that night was nothing short of incredible. There is a live soundtrack to the turning point of America, and they nailed it. I mean, it starts all like funky and up, and then it gets like Robert Randolph playing Hendrix on a pedal steel, like dark. Like, we put a musical soundtrack down for this major turning point.
Wow.
But the next 4 years for Headcount were a time of really finding our footing where people just like cared more, and people really saw that elections had consequences. And by 2018, and also like Parkland students and the March for Our Lives movement was another like really major important thing for Headcount, where we back to the jam scene. So Cameron Kasky, the founder of the one of the founders of the Parkland movement, his dad used to go on jam crews. He was, I think, like he worked for Jam Cruise or something. He was the lawyer for Jam Cruise or something. So his dad called me and said, "Hey, you want to? This is a movement that's happening for my son, and it's all about voting. I think you guys should get involved." And we did get involved, and it was really, really a big moment for Headcount. We were working even outside the music space. We were registering voters at these events and working with these Parkland students. And one of them is still on our board, a guy named Matt Deitch, who's brilliant. And so the entire Trump presidency was a time of transformation for Headcount, for sure. And I'm happy to say that the level of engagement is still really strong. Like even after 2 years with Trump not in office, people are still paying a lot of attention.
Did you see? Oh, sorry. One last one, Kevin. Then I'll give it to you for the end. Is that all right? I just want to know. Did you see a boost with the Supreme Court like that? Like 2 week of, it was just progressively worse and worse and worse. You remember those 2 weeks when they fucked up all of our freedoms and democracy and all that shit? Did you see a pump in engagement?
Yes and no. We definitely saw some like pockets. We had a brand come back, a brand that was going to sit out the election, or like, we can't sit out the election, and that was cool. But I'll tell you what, when we really saw the bigger jump, going back 2 years before, was Black Lives Matter. And when that movement in June of 2020, it was the largest social movement in America's history. And it went from 3 months of pandemic where there was just nothing happening. We register voters on our website every day, so we can see it. And it was dead. It was dead in the month of April, and it was dead in the month of May. And we're like, oh shit, how are we going to have a head count? We didn't have concerts to go to and all these things. And then when, with George Floyd's murder, that's when shit changed. And it never went back. Like it started jumping, and we were registering more and more voters every day. And 2020 ended up being our best year ever in terms of voters registered. We registered over 400,000 voters. Our goal was 200,000. And I always credit Black Lives Matter movement, and the leaders of that movement really did change the world, as the Parkland students did too. There were surveys about why young people voted, and so many, like an incredible number, cited the messaging about gun violence. So it really goes to show that like social movements do make huge differences. And so the Parkland movement, the March for Our Lives, and the Black Lives Matter movement, much more so than what we saw with Roe v. Wade this year.
Wow. Kev, I owe you a beer. I'm sorry. Kev was going to bring that up, and I was a little hesitant about, because I wasn't sure how of an effect. He totally called that. He knew that had an effect on voter registration.
Yeah.
You want to take us out?
Let's get out of here real quick. I just wanted to know, have you met your goals this year? And you want to leave a message for everyone, get out there to vote?
Yeah, sure. Well, we have met our goals this year. Our goal was 125,000 registrations. We do much fewer registrations in midterm elections and presidential. And our goal was to directly have contact with 1 million voters. So we smashed the voter registration goal. We're at 180,000. It's literally double what we did in 2018. And I would expect we'll hit the goal, we call them actions, the 1 million actions goal in the next few weeks. So very grateful for that, very grateful to our staff and our volunteers and board and all the supporters. If people want to get involved with Headcount, please go to headcount.org, sign up to volunteer. There's not that many events left before this election, but it'll pop up again in the spring, and you get on our list and whatnot. It's seeing free shows. Seeing free shows and registering voters, it's a pretty good deal.
And you guys do internships, right? You offer internships to people?
Yeah, our internship program is great. In fact, we have a intern now who is the daughter of one of the great rock stars in America. I don't think we've said publicly that we have this celebrity family interning with us, but it's very cool. She could have interned anywhere. Our internships are great. You can go on our website and see all the information about that. But you ask about the goal, and my goal personally right now is to really pass Headcount on to the next generation. Like, the real success is headcount working with a whole new group of people who are younger and more in the demographics that we're targeting. I mean, I was a young voter when we started. I think I was 32 when we started, so I was still in that young voter demographic, and I'm 19 years older now than when we started. So, I recognize like anything, like with music, like it's all about passing the baton. So my real goal after this cycle is to really not just say that, but really do it and like really find ways to empower more young people and hand over the keys. So, that's a long process, but it's something that I think is the ultimate fulfillment of the mission. The ultimate fulfillment is if everybody votes, but like, it's about leadership. It's about community. It's about all these things. And that means that it has to regenerate. And we have great people involved who I think are really, really capable of that. So I'm really excited about our future. I'm still a weird optimist. I still believe that our country is capable of great things and our world is capable of great things. And I just hope that through the gift of the music and the community that supported us, that headcount can continue that in a really different way. Like, we're not going to look the same in 10 years or 20 years, but just to survive, it needs to evolve. And I'm really excited for that.
Wow.
It's beautiful.
I mean, there's so much we could talk to you for another hour, but
that was
things,
incredible.
yeah.
We got to go out on that. It was very well
we got
said.
things. Thank you so much, Andy. So
great having
appreciate
you
it, man.
on.
If there's anything we can ever do to help, you know where to find us.
Well, thanks. And please say hello to me at a show. I'll, I think that all dudes at Phish shows look exactly the same. So I can't tell anybody. I won't be like, but please come and say hi, because I'm clueless, and we'll break bread.
I'm going to save the clip on my phone. So when you're like, who the fuck are you? I'll be like, look, we talked for an hour. It was fun.
But I'll look forward to that. You guys stay in touch. This was a lot of fun. And I know people really love your show. And now you can count me among them.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Get out there to vote, everyone. Get out there, register.
Llama was like, fuck you, man. I'm going to play the credits.
Llama's ready for bed.
Yeah, Llama just fucking cut him off.
We out.
Did you know we could talk over the credits?
I do now.
Llama's like, fuck you, Kev. I'll play the credits.
You guys are cut off by the producer.
You are cut off.
I was trying to throw something out about Taper's Choice coming up.
I know. I was going to say that too.
Go watch
the
Taper's
show.
Choice.